Today's lesson is on operations with complex numbers. When we multiply complex numbers, it's almost exactly the same as multiplying polynomials. The only difference is that when we use complex numbers, we could get I squared, and we need to remember that I squared equals -1, and we're going to use that piece of information to help us simplify our answers. So we will not end up with any squared terms in our final answer. We will have a real number and an imaginary number, or possibly just a real number, or possibly just an imaginary number. Okay, so we're going to take a look at adding and subtracting complex numbers. It's exactly the same. You're really just combining like terms. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So we're going to look at our real numbers. So -2 and 3. I'm going to add those together. -2 plus 3 gives me 1. Then I'm going to look at my imaginary numbers. I've got +4 and -11, which gives me -7i. All right, for B, I'm going to go ahead and distribute this negative. I prefer that. If you like to just subtract, that's fine. But I'm going to go ahead and subtract that negative. So I've got 4 minus I. Now this is going to become a plus. This becomes -5 minus 8i. And now I am going to combine my like terms again. I've got my real number, it's 4 and -5. 4 plus -5 gives me -1. Then my imaginary numbers, I've got -I plus -8i gives me -9i. Right, for C, I only have one real number, so it's going to be -3. Then I've got 5i plus 6i gives me a total of 11i. Right, and once again, I'm going to go ahead and distribute by negative first. So I've got 2i plus -3, and then a negative times a negative becomes a positive, so plus 5i. I've only got one real number once again, so -3. And I have two imaginary numbers. 2i plus 5i gives me plus 7i. Now, with multiplying, we're either going to distribute or we're going to use, you can use FOIL or you can use the box method. The important thing to remember is we're writing these in standard form. Standard form is A plus BI. So real plus imaginary, which is actually backwards from the way we're used to writing. We usually write the variable first and the constant last. But in this case, we do it the opposite. All right, so to start off, we're going to go ahead and distribute this 2i. So I've got 2i times 3, which gives me 6i. And then 2i times -5i. So 2 times -5 gives me -10. And I times I gives me I squared. But I know that I squared equals -1. So I'm just going to rewrite this a little more cleanly. So now I got 6i, and then -10 times -1 is +10. So this is my answer, but I need to rearrange it. I want it to be in standard form. So the 10 will come first, the 6i will go at the end. All right, for B, again, you can use FOIL or you can use the box method. I personally prefer the box method, so that's what I'm going to do. But if you were going to use FOIL, it would be your first terms, your outside terms, your inside terms, and your last terms. But as I said, I like the box because it works no matter what the size of each polynomial is. All right, I'm going to take 5 minus 6i, put it on the top, and 4 minus 3i on the bottom. And now I'm going to multiply the top times the left. So 5 times 4 gives me 20. 4 times negative 6i gives me negative 24i. Negative 3i times 5 gives me negative 15i. And negative 3i times negative 6i, I've got a negative times a negative becomes positive. 6 times 3 gives me 18. And then I times I gives me I squared. So I'm going to start off writing those together. So 20 plus negative 24i plus negative 15i plus 18i squared. Now, if you just want to write 20 minus 24i minus 15i plus 18i squared, that's fine too. It's totally up to you. All right, but we know that I squared is negative 1. So this now becomes 20 plus negative 24i plus negative 15i. And then negative 1 times 18 becomes negative 18. So I'm going to make negative 18. And now I want to combine my like terms. So I've got 20 minus 18 gives me 2. And then I've got negative 24i plus negative 15i gives me negative 39i. All right, last one. Got 6i times 6i. So I'm going to multiply. 6 times 6 is going to give me 36. I times I gives me I squared. But again, I know I squared is negative 1. So 36 times negative 1 gives me negative 36.